Welcome to Health 2660. Here we don't just talk about health, we tell the stories that heal. Now please listen to the story. The tremor started in his left hand, a subtle vibration, like a hummingbird's wings, beating against his bones. It wasn't painful, not yet, but it was persistent. It came and went, a phantom limb twitching with anxieties he couldn't name. At 76, Franklin Hawthorne had accepted that slowing down was just part of getting old. He'd retired a decade ago from his job as a school principal in Sarasota, Florida. A man of steady habits, Franklin had traded school bells for quiet breakfasts on the porch, crossword puzzles, and the occasional shuffle around the block with his dog Max. But lately, things had changed. It started subtly. One morning, Franklin tried to rise from his recliner and felt his knees wobble. He had to push off with both hands, and even then, it took effort. That evening, reaching for a glass of water, his hand trembled. He brushed it off. Just a fluke, he told himself. But it kept happening. He noticed his legs shaking as he climbed the 2 steps into the house. Bending down to pick up Max's ball became a chore. The worst moment came when he stumbled in the kitchen, barely catching himself on the counter. There was no injury, but the scare stayed with him. He sat down that night with a bowl of soup and stared at it, spoon suspended midair. "What's happening to me?" he whispered. Franklin wasn't the kind to complain. He'd lived through hurricanes, budget cuts, and the loss of his wife Elaine. But this slow, creeping weakness, it unsettled him. Not just because of what it meant physically, but because he feared losing something deeper, his independence. The thought of needing help to simply exist, to cook, to clean, to care for Max, gnawed at him. He saw it in the faces of the other retirees in his neighborhood. The slumped shoulders, the hesitant steps, the constant reliance on walkers and canes. He didn't want that. One afternoon, while waiting for his checkup, Franklin overheard 2 men in the waiting room chatting about muscle loss. Sarcopenia, they said. He jotted the word on a napkin. He'd always been a voracious reader, a man who valued knowledge and understanding. This, though, felt different. This wasn't about intellectual curiosity. This was about survival. He felt a primal urge to understand what was happening to his body, to fight back against the encroaching weakness. That night, he sat at his computer and typed in, "Why do I feel weaker as I get older?" And there it was, article after article about muscle loss in seniors. He clicked on a video titled, "Seniors Stop Muscle Loss Now with This One Food." The host's voice was calm but firm. By the age of 60, you may have already lost up to 33% of your muscle mass, even if you feel healthy. It creeps in silently. No pain, no symptoms. Until you can't stand up without pushing yourself. Franklin felt a chill. That was exactly what he was experiencing. The silent creep. The insidious erosion. He thought of his father, who had gradually withered in his final years, confined to a wheelchair, his once strong hands gnarled and useless. He didn't want to end up like that. He wouldn't. But the video didn't just highlight the problem. It offered hope. Real, practical hope. Foods that could help. Habits that could restore strength. Exercises that could rebuild muscle. It wasn't a magic bullet, the host cautioned, but a consistent, conscious effort to take control of your health. Franklin leaned in. The one food that stood out: brown rice. Unassuming, affordable, sitting in his pantry all along. He'd always preferred white rice, finding brown rice slightly too chewy and bland. But now, brown rice seemed like a lifeline. The video explained brown rice was rich in complex carbs, fiber, magnesium, and B vitamins. It delivered steady energy, avoiding the sugar spikes and crashes of processed foods. It supported blood sugar levels, crucial for managing diabetes, which Franklin was borderline for. It helped regulate muscle contractions and prevent cramps, easing the aches and pains that had become his constant companions. Paired with lean proteins, leafy greens, and healthy fats, it could transform how the body aged. Franklin scribbled everything down on a yellow legal pad. The list of foods, the recommended exercises, the importance of sleep, the need for social interaction. It felt overwhelming, a complete overhaul of his comfortable, if somewhat stagnant routine. That night, he made a choice. No more frozen dinners. No more waiting to get weaker. He decided to fight. He wouldn't surrender to age. He would reclaim his strength, his independence, his life. He cleared a corner of his kitchen counter and called it his strength station. He gathered his weapons: brown rice, quinoa, walnuts, cottage cheese, blueberries, flax seeds, and yes, even Greek yogurt. Before bed, a suggestion that initially struck him as bizarre. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced since his days as a school principal, navigating unruly teenagers and demanding parents. This time, though, the battle was against his own body, against the relentless march of time. At first, it felt silly. He wasn't used to eating health foods. He'd always been a meat and potatoes kind of guy, content with simple, familiar flavors. He missed his nightly ice cream. He craved the salty crunch of potato chips. But he persevered, driven by the fear of losing everything he held dear. But something surprising happened. After just 2 weeks, Franklin noticed he wasn't as tired climbing the stairs. He could reach the top without pausing to catch his breath. The tremor in his hand seemed less frequent, less intense. He felt a flicker of hope, a tiny ember of belief that he might actually be able to turn things around. By the 4th week, he stood up from his recliner without bracing his hands. He could bend down to pick up Max's ball without wincing. He started taking longer walks with Max, exploring new routes, rediscovering the beauty of his neighborhood. By week 6, he was walking Max twice a day with a bounce in his step. He felt lighter, more energetic, more alive. He even started whistling again, a habit he had abandoned years ago. His doctor was stunned. "What have you been doing differently?" she asked, her eyes wide with surprise. His blood pressure was down, his cholesterol was improved, and his muscle mass had actually increased slightly. Franklin chuckled. "Eating like I actually want to live long," he said, feeling a sense of pride he hadn't anticipated. He told her about the video, about the brown rice, about the strength station in his kitchen. But it wasn't just the food. It was the feeling of taking back control. He wasn't just letting age take over. He was doing something about it. He felt stronger, more alive, like himself again. He began each morning with a small bowl of brown rice porridge with berries and flax. Lunch was a spinach salad with walnuts and grilled chicken. Dinner: quinoa, steamed vegetables, and a scoop of cottage cheese with cinnamon. And at night, a serving of Greek yogurt, just as the video suggested, to slow muscle breakdown during sleep. He even started experimenting with new recipes, discovering a surprising talent for cooking. It became his rhythm, his medicine, his hope. He looked forward to his meals not just as sustenance, but as a celebration of life, a testament to his commitment to staying strong. One morning, Franklin stood before the mirror, pulled up his t-shirt, and flexed. He saw the lines on his face, the wrinkles around his eyes, the slight sag in his skin, But he also saw something else: muscle. Not the bulging biceps of a bodybuilder, but solid, functional muscle. Muscle that allowed him to move with ease, to stand tall, to live fully. Well, he laughed, not quite Arnold Schwarzenegger, but not bad for 76. He felt a surge of joy, a profound sense of accomplishment. He sent an email to his daughter with the subject line, "Muscle Grandpa is back." He told his church friends, shared the video, even printed out meal plans for his neighbors. He became the go-to guy for staying strong after 70. Franklin wasn't trying to be young again. He knew that was impossible. He just wanted to enjoy his time without fearing every step. He wanted to bend down and tie his shoes without wincing. He wanted to walk Max without worrying if he could make it home. He wanted to dance, yes, dance, at his granddaughter's wedding in the spring. He had promised her he would. And when that day came, he did. The wedding was a joyous occasion filled with laughter, tears, and the sweet melodies of love. Franklin watched his granddaughter, radiant in her white dress, walk down the aisle, and his heart swelled with pride. In a crisp blue suit, Franklin took his granddaughter's hand and spun her gently across the floor. The room cheered. His legs held steady. His back was straight. His smile beamed. He felt strong, vibrant, alive. As the music played, he thought back to that night he watched the video. How a bowl of brown rice became more than food. It became the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter filled with strength, hope, and the joy of living. Because sometimes saving your strength starts not with medicine or machines, but with one small, humble change in what's on your plate. Franklin continued his routine, diligently eating his brown rice, lifting his weights, small dumbbells, nothing too strenuous, and walking Max. He even started volunteering at the local elementary school, reading to the children and sharing his wisdom. He had discovered a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to get out of bed each morning. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. He often reflected on the simplicity of it all, how a simple grain, combined with a conscious effort to live healthier, had transformed his life. He became a staunch advocate for healthy eating, encouraging others to take control of their health regardless of their age. Health 2660. Thanks you for listening. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, be kind to yourself.